Hi everyone, it's Becky here. So here I am at another little neighborhood park. And so actually I've been only here to this park for one or two times since the past 10 years that I moved here. So this park is not as interesting as the other park that I usually go to, but yeah, I was gonna take a walk here anyway and find one inspiration to put in my art journal. And this park looks very wild and it's pretty good to walk around and feel this environment, the atmosphere before deciding to sketch something. So I just decided to sketch this view. It looks very mundane, nothing special about it, but we can make it interesting with art, with drawing and painting. So I just found a flat spot and I just put my portable stool on it and sitting down, ready to sketch. As always, I'm visualizing the size and placement of everything with hand gestures. I'm starting to draw with my 0.8 Uni-Pin brand fine liner pen. And I'm starting with the central point of this scenery, so the little bridge or walkway, not in the very middle, but a little bit towards the right, just so it doesn't look too stiff. And above the little bridge, or actually behind the bridge, there's this tree. So I started drawing the tree's trunk and then the branches and twigs. Same for the next tree. I always start drawing the trunk first and then the branches and the little twigs. Just use very loose lines. Trees, they're not, very stiffly straight. They can be very loose and, leaning to one side sometimes. And yeah, so for drawing trees, we don't have to make perfect lines. And here on the very right side, I have these two evergreen trees. So I just drew their contour outlines, and there's some dry grass in front of these, and now just drawing the trunk in the middle for these two evergreens, and adding some little textures for the grass and the foliage here and there. These short little standing lines are grass, and this is the bank. All right, very little choppy pen strokes. And here's another evergreen tree and some more shorter deciduous trees mixing in between the evergreens. I like the mixing of evergreens and deciduous foliage. And just finishing drawing the bank. On the left side, using very loose and choppy and sketchy lines is fine for sketching nature. And here's another one. So just like linking or connecting one tree after another, and there's two little houses behind. But for most of this scenery are just trees. And towards the lower part of this page, I'm adding some ripples. It's very windy, so there are lots of ripples moving and changing all the time. Just add a bit of shade for the bank over there, and adding some ducks. Here's one over here, starting to draw the head and the beak and the body. There's very tiny little shapes floating on water. Just use very simple outlines to suggest their definition. That's it for the line work. As you can see, it's so windy. And last bit of ripples here and there. That's it. And here is the look of my finished line work. It took me 14 minutes. Okay, so now I'm ready to paint watercolors. I'm using Etchr watercolors with 24 half pen in it and 2 water brushes. And just getting ready. the painting part of this tutorial right now is in real-time speed because I want you to see my painting process very clearly. And the time lapse, even though just the slowest time lapse, is going to be kind of rushing. So real time now. So as always, when I'm painting a landscape, I always like to start painting the sky first. So now I'm using my large tip Holbein brand water brush to wet the sky area. Wetting the sky area with clear water, it really helps the color to spread out and just let the sky be really translucent rather than solid paint. So yeah, just take the time to wet the sky area first with clear water. It really helps. Just grabbing some ultramarine blue and light green to get this turquoise color for the bottom of the sky. If you look at the sky really carefully, it's not just one kind of blue. I see around the bottom, on a sunny day, the sky is always kind of like turquoise, this nice fresh mint color. Just lay it very loosely without stirring too much. And grabbing some more cerulean blue for the top part of the sky. And just let it blend with the lower part. Nice and loose. This is very watery wash. And this is what the sky should look like. It should look much more transparent compared to the solid things like trees. And a little bit of ultramarine blue on the very top. This is the transition of sky color. And that's it for the sky. I'm not gonna overmix, just let it be. And it's beautiful. Let the colors blend naturally themselves. And now I think I am gonna paint the water part because the sky and the forest below are merging together. I want the sky colors to dry a bit. Otherwise, the trees are gonna look too muddy. So now I'm wetting the water area with clear water by squeezing my water brush. So this is the color that I feel about the water. So I just grabbed some cerulean blue mixed with ultramarine blue and a tiny bit of pink purple. And pretty watery. This is the first layer for water. So when painting water, it's a good idea to make the first layer pretty watery and translucent, and then gradually add some medium to dark tones in the second and third layer. And grabbing some teal green mixed with a little bit of burnt sienna or brown to get this color. This is the reflection of the evergreen trees around the bank. And rather than grabbing some more green from the palette, I'm just kind of dragging this color down so it's dissolving a little bit. It was a little bit too strong. So we can always change the color intensity on paper by using the brush, a clean brush, to drag the colors around a little bit. And so now I am adding this bit of warm green that I observe around the bottom of these two evergreen trees, and a little bit of yellow orange for the dried grass underneath the bridge. Yellow mixed with orange and a little bit of yellow ochre is fine too. This is the attractive part of the scenery, the warm glow of the sunshine onto the trees and dried grass. Just playing around with the warm colors. Okay, now I'm ready to paint the evergreen trees. So I just grab some Viridian green and a bit of burnt sienna or brown, just to get this more of organic dark green color. Just use very little choppy brush strokes to paint these trees. And there's another evergreen tree far behind, so the green is more pale, because things in the distance will can make it really blurry and more pale. And I just add a little bit more yellow orange for the bushes in the middle above the bridge. Nice and shiny, the golden light of the afternoon sunshine. Very warm and soothing. And now I'm getting a little bit impressionistic because I feel a little bit of a pink in between these early spring trees. There might be, cherry blossoms coming. And mixing in some more organic green by mixing Viridian green and burnt sienna for this evergreen tree. Here's one and another one beside it. They're like twins. Yeah, just painting very loosely. We don't have to use very solid colors for now. This is still the first layer for everything. And painting the bank too. It's green grass. And there are two houses behind the very left side of trees. And I just use some dark brown to paint the rooftops. And again, use the leftover dark brown to paint the tree branches and twigs. Because a large amount of twigs merging together, they feel like very hazy cluster or patches of browns together. This is the feel of winter trees. They're not just, bare lines. I feel like they're kind of merging together like soft feathers. And now looking at the real scenery and comparing my sketch and see what else that I can add. So I just grabbed some Viridian green and mixed it with burnt sienna and a little bit of blue, mixing in less water. So now I'm adding the second layer, a more intense kind of dark green for the evergreen tree here. In real life, these two evergreen trees, these twins, they're actually very dark, almost like silhouettes. And now I'm darkening them to create more contrast in this landscape, using very little choppy brush strokes, because every brush stroke, the tone of green is slightly different. And now I'm gonna add the second layer, the more intense kind of green with less water and more paint pigment for the evergreen trees on the right hand side. And now I like this selection of landscape better because it's very nice balance of dark and light tones. So the evergreen trees on the left and right, they look more heavy than the bare branch trees in the middle. And so this creates a really nice balance in this landscape. And I actually didn't see this quality when I decided to sketch this landscape. I paid more attention to the bridge or walkway in the middle. Now I like it even more. And I'm so glad that I've selected this scenery to sketch. And now I'm just using very gentle little brush strokes to bring a little bit of diluted green into the middle part, because I want to create a sense of depth And there are actually some evergreen trees behind the bare branch trees in the far distance. And every little brushstroke counts. It creates something. And yeah, just these almost invisible colors added to the middle to create a sense of depth. And now I am at the very last stage of painting, and I'm being very cautious. As you can see, you can barely see what I'm adding on with my brush. So near the last bit of painting, it's a very good idea to be a little more cautious. And now I'm just adding a little bit dark blue tone for the bank on the right side, and a little bit contrast for the dried grass near the bottom, just a little bit. I think the light and shade and all the contrast in this landscape painting is going pretty well. I don't need to add too much anymore. So just some very gentle retouches here and there. And I would like to add some more definition for the water and the ripples. So before that, I'm just adding a little bit more retouches for the branches and twigs. And I think that's it for the forest part. And I'm just grabbing some green and a little bit burnt sienna or brown. And use pretty thin brush strokes to add. This is actually the ripple and also the reflection color of the evergreen trees above. Just use very thin brush strokes. And when you're doing ripples like this, make sure your first layer is dried. Otherwise, these brush strokes are gonna be dissolved. Just make sure the previous layer is dried. And now the water is looking more dynamic. That's really great. And these green ripples are actually the reflections of the evergreen trees above. So water is never just, perfectly blue. It's kind of like a mirror, always reflecting the colors above it. And yeah, just adding some almost invisible retouches for the forest in the middle. And keep adding on some dark blue brushstrokes for the water in the foreground. And I think that's it. It's time to call it done and stop, adding further details or modeling around. And here is the look of my finished sketch. So thank you so much for watching my video. If you like my video, please click like and leave me a comment below of what you think. Subscribe to my channel for weekly updates. I update my channel 2 to 3 times a week. And I will see you again very soon next time. Have a great day.